Well, any questions? Strategic plan, very important. Your case for support, very, very important. The techniques, I'd emphasize your IRA charitable rollover, the Michigan tax credit. Both of those have a December 31st deadline. Promoting endowments. Let's go to gifts that help later. And again, now we're talking about gifts that you receive the income when people pass away. And these are very, very important to you. And the first example is the bequests. 80 to 90% of all planned gifts, dollar-wise, are bequests from a will or trust. The beauty of this technique, in addition to being the largest source of planned gift revenue, is that it is the simplest to do. My friends, this is amazing. This is the biggest source of planned gift revenue for you. It is the easiest for donors to do, and it's very simple for you to promote. And my bet is none of you have been doing this yet, and you need to do it, okay? So let's look at this. What we're talking about is a 2 or 3 sentence wording in their will or trust designating you as beneficiary. Specify a percentage of your estate, a specific asset, or the residue of your estate. Well, of those options, personally, if I'm in your shoes, you would prefer to receive a percentage of the estate, okay? But people can say, I want to leave $100 to you, or they can specify assets like 100 shares of the Lilly stock or Ford stock that I own. The problem with specific assets are people write their wills and then they oftentimes don't change the wills. So they may write it, then put it on the shelf, and then 20 years later they die. And all the while, hopefully and most likely, the value of their estate has gone up. So if they only left you specific assets, that may or may not be as much as what they would have really wanted to do if they were to write their will closer to when they die. But if they say, okay, 10% for charity, 80% to the family, another 10% somewhere else, that way you get the same relative share, in comparison to family and other interests, regardless of the value of their estate, which hopefully, again, goes up. With wills, when they die, it'll go through probate, and then a judge will oversee the disposition of the gift to you. If instead the bequest is in a revocable trust, those don't go through probate. When they die, it'll be up to the trustee of the trust or the successor trustee or whomever is identified in the trust to make sure those assets in the trust go to you. So wills go through probate, revocable trusts do not. But the same language, bequest language, can be used in either type of document. That's why we say a bequest through a will or trust, okay? On the next, got a question.
Hi, this may be a very simple question, but I've been approached by donors who don't necessarily want to go through the cost of changing their will.
Yes.
But want to leave a bequest to us.
Yes.
The advice I got was that they could not do that without changing the body of the will. Is there some kind of an addendum that they can make to a will?
Oh, bless your heart. That's an outstanding question. See, every question is essential. Number one, writing a will usually is not very expensive, FYI. Now, some wills are more complicated than others, but a simple will may be a few $100s, $200, $300. A trust will be more into the thousands of dollars, FYI. There is a concept called an amendment or codicil, C-O-D-I-C-I-L, codicil to a will, that would just amend the existing will. So you could write a codicil or amendment that would include the gift language. Yes. And a codicil should be even less expensive than the original will. More questions?
Can you do the amendment of codicil to a trust or just to
Yes.
a will?
Yes, you can amend
both.
trusts too.
Okay.
Yes. Simple amendment to the trust is possible as well. Less expensive. Were there more questions? I thought I saw another hand up. Yeah.
Are the bequests challenged or the will donations? Are they challenged frequently?
With these kinds of wills, no. I think that's why you hire a good lawyer to do it for you, is to nail it down. So I wouldn't, at some level, you can't worry about that. You want to make sure that that your donors consider this when they plan. And hey, I have been a part of estates where family got much less than they thought mom and dad would have given them, and charity got a lot more. And yeah, they're upset sometimes. That's not your fault. That's that person's decision about what's important to them. And I've worked with a lot of people who feel like they've helped their kids their whole life, and it's not their job to leave everything to them when they die. But that's their decision to make, not yours. You're just giving them information to make a choice. If the family enters the picture, great. But this is a confidential arrangement between me and them. It's inappropriate for me to divulge any of those details to even their family. That's up to them. It really is. A lot of people say when you promote will bequests like this, the worry by your organization is this too personal? Are we crossing the line in our communications with donors? And my feeling is, of course, not. As long as you do it appropriately, you're not acting as their lawyer. You're just giving them ideas and suggestions. It's up to them to act on it. But I'm here to tell you, you'll have more people do this if you suggest it to them than if you not. My advice to you is to have your lawyer or any competent lawyer who might volunteer time for you to create sample bequest language that you can give your donors, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. But what you're doing is you're showing people how simple it is, how easy it is. A key to this is always have your correct legal name in here and your location. See, one thing judges hate to do with estates is try to read the mind of a dead person. So the more specific and accurate the person's stated wishes are, the less likely that you're going to have any sort of controversy. If they don't state your name right, if they get it wrong, then the kid's challenge. Yeah, you may be up for a fight. But as long as the will complies with Michigan law, or you may have friends or donors who retire in Michigan and then move to Florida to retire. Well, they need to have a lawyer down there now, or a lawyer in Michigan who's a member of the bar in Florida, write a new will for them if they're going to probably now die in Florida and have a will probated down there. So you want a will that's compliant with Florida law. Are you with me? Now, it's not your job to be a legal expert. All you're doing is saying, please consider including us in your will. Here's a sample of what that would look like. Here's our correct legal name. Share it with your lawyer wherever you live and consider doing this. And please consider a percentage of your estate and unrestricted. But if you'd like to restrict it for an endowment, then you can build that in there and make sure you reference your fund at the community foundation. Now, there are a couple of other kinds of gifts that pay later that I want to talk about. Gifts of retirement plan assets. Again, what we're talking about here are things like IRAs and 403Bs and 401Ks and all those kind of retirement plans. And quite often, when they die, surviving spouse inherits the plan, or kids, but why not some of it or all of it for you? So it's real simple with retirement plans. A donor can go to the retirement plan administrator and ask them for a beneficiary designation form, and they put your name as a beneficiary. And it doesn't have to be 100%. It can be 10%, 20%, 80%. Are you with me? And it's revocable. The thing about will bequests, retirement plan designations, they are revocable. They can change them at any time, okay? Now, my experience is once people do this, once they include you in their will or name you as beneficiary retirement plan, it is rare that they ever take you out. The tough part is just getting them to do it to begin with. But once you're named, you really would have to make them mad to now go back to their lawyer and take you out of their will, or to call their IRA administrator and redo their beneficiary designation form. For people who are wealthy, and that's at $5 million and above, these plan assets, almost 80% of them are paid in taxes, with the estate tax and the income tax. So this is the best asset for wealthy people to give to charity. But for others, think about it. For a lot of people, where do they own their wealth? Okay, they got their home, right? They got their personal property, the car, the jewelry, all that stuff. They may be, and we're going to talk about life insurance, and a retirement plan quite often is an asset they have. So why not encourage them to name you as beneficiary of that plan? They can name you. They can even name your endowment fund at the community foundation, but they have to get it right in there. So you have to help them out and give them the correct legal name, just like you do with the will bequest language. Simple, but hugely important. Easy to do. It's revocable, so you can tell your donors, it's not going to tie you down. It's coming from your estate after you're gone when you don't need the money anyway, and it is revocable. If you change your mind, you can always change it, There it is. Easy. The next one, gifts of life insurance. Now, why do people buy life insurance? I am told that as your kids get older, they become economically self-sufficient. Would somebody in this room please assure me that that is true? Because I'm not seeing it yet, and I'm getting really nervous, all right? So we have life insurance. Why? To take care of the kids quite often if something happens to mom and dad. So then, ultimately, theoretically, the kids do become economically self-sufficient, and you don't need the life insurance anymore. So instead of letting it lapse, or instead of selling it on the market in a life settlement, what should you do with the life insurance? Give it to you, charity, right? And there are two ways to make a gift of life insurance. They can name you as beneficiary of the life insurance, and they do that same way you do with retirement plans. What do? They call the life insurance company, get a beneficiary designation form, put your name in there. Does it have to be for 100% of the life insurance? No. It can be 10%, 20%, whatever, just like the retirement plan. Easy to do, revocable, can change it at any time. It doesn't have to be for the whole thing. Is this an easy idea to talk about? Yes. Is it appealing? You bet. Have you been doing it heretofore? Probably not. Do you need to start immediately? Yes. Why? Sadly, people pass all the time. You're missing perhaps opportunities every day that you delay getting this word out there. Does it help for you to get the ideas out there? Yes. Can you always rely on donors or their lawyers to suggest doing these kinds of things? No. You have to plant these seeds. The other way a person can make a gift of life insurance is to transfer ownership of the policy to you. Now you own the policy. So now you get all of the death benefit. If they make you owner, then you have to be the complete death beneficiary. So instead of 10% of the face amount or the death benefit amount, you get it all. If it's like a whole or universal life insurance policy, that has cash value in it, if they transfer ownership of the policy to you, they get a tax deduction for the cash value in that policy. Are you with me? So some of these policies can have a lot of cash value in there. So that can be a nice income tax deduction that the donor can claim when they transfer ownership of the policy to you. But let's say it's a policy that still must have premiums paid to keep it in force. The donor can make gifts to you of the dollar amount of the premium payments, and then you use that to pay the premium. And those gifts to you to pay the premiums are tax-deductible gifts. Is this better than sliced bread or what? So they transfer ownership of the policy to you, you own it. When they die, you're going to get all the death benefit amount, and if there are premiums yet to be paid, they can make gifts to you to cover the premium payments. Now, let's say they give it to you, they pay premiums for 5 years, then they decide, I can't pay premiums anymore. Well, you have two choices. You can either start paying the premiums out of your budget, or what? You can cash out the policy and take that cash value and transform it into cash right now. Okay? It's your policy. You own it. You can cash it out at any time. And who are you going to go to for this? People, especially people whose kids have become economically self-sufficient. So, bequests in a will or trust, beneficiary designations of retirement plans, beneficiary and or changing ownership of life insurance. These are very, very important for you to promote. Put this kind of information in your newsletter, on your website, do mailings to your constituents, at special events. Mention these ideas. Hand this information out. Don't be embarrassed by it. You're not crossing the line and becoming too personal. You're not being their lawyer. You're just giving them ideas they can choose. It's how you present it that's the important thing. You can do it in a respectful, low-key way. You're not hitting them over the head. You're just giving them ideas if they want to help you. Okay? Any questions?
So you said it's all about the approach and how to gracefully or passively kind of give them the information. Are there any organizations that do it really well on their website that you could point to?
Well, Ball State University. Higher education generally does really well at this kind of promotion. So you can go to like University of Michigan, Michigan State, get into their foundation, plan giving information, and be prepared. You know, there's a lot there. Big national organizations tend to do a good job with this. The Community Foundation has some good stuff at their website. Take a look at that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask how good is, or how transferable is that to smaller nonprofits, though, that aren't doing $100 million, $200 million campaigns?
Highly transferable. I would not be saying this to you if I didn't believe that you can do this. I mean, this is hardly any cost to you. What does it cost you to make copies and hand them out? Okay, you do some mailings, or you weave it into a pre-existing mailing you already have. You put it in a newsletter you already have, an email blast. The cost is minimal, and the potential, if you see, you're at the top of the pyramid here. If you get one bequest as a result of all this, you've not only paid for this, you've paid it for the next 100 years, I mean, probably. I'm not kidding. The potential of return is so, you just don't realize it. You've not seen it in front of you to realize the potential that this might have at such a really low cost of promoting. Can't say it enough. Yes?
We're like him, a small organization, and I was having an idea and just wonder what you thought about it. If you took your list of regular donors and had like an invitation evening time for somebody to come and present these ideas to them, is that a good way to approach it?
Yes. You know, if you've got lawyers who are on your board, accountants, financial planners, you know, they love to do like panel discussions, you know, and they can talk about the latest ideas in estate planning. But if you host them to do that, you tell them, well, in your presentation, you also have to mention this, and you hand these materials out, and they will. And that's a great technique. You know, invite your donors, your friends, your supporters, and say, you know, we're going to have this reception. You're going to get some free estate planning advice from 3 very competent, good, a lawyer, accountant, financial planner. And as part of their presentation, they also mention how to plan these kind of gifts. And you pass this stuff out. That's a great technique. Great idea. I'm so glad you said that. You're planting the seeds for the future of your organization by doing this. I'm not kidding. There's a lot of wealth out there, you know, that passes through estates. You know, a lot of people, they just don't spend it all during their life. There's something left at the end. And you're trying to position yourself to get something of that. You're not trying to cut the family out, but you got to let donors decide for themselves. And many, not everybody will give a gift, but many will. And they'll be big gifts too. So now I'm focusing on major plan gift fundraising for you. You do the annual fund stuff, you plan special events, and you write for grants. But maybe this is an area you've not spent a lot of time in. So the first step in the fundraising cycle is identifying who these people are. And again, there's proactive and reactive identification. Then you qualify those people. That is, okay, we've come up with a list of 100 names. Between you, your board, your key volunteers, we came up with a list of 100 people who we think might, or 50 people, or I don't care what the number is, it can be 10 people. Come up with a list. You know, and if you're really small, 5 people. Just do a list. And then you qualify those 5. You try to rank them based on criteria. And we're going to talk about those criteria. Who should we talk to first? If we're going to proactively go talk to somebody about considering a major or planned gift, so we're going to go talk to them now. And we're going to think about how we're going to do it. But who do we go to first? Second. And you might go to that first choice, and it's a no, or it's not at this time. You scratch them off the list, and you go to number 2, And that's just the way it works. How do we qualify them? We'll talk about. Then you cultivate and educate. So you go meet them, and look, do you ask somebody to marry you on the first date? No. You got to build the relationship and educate them that, it's worth marrying me because, I earn money, and I'm a nice person. In your case, you're cultivating donor relationships. We have a strategic plan. We have a case for support. We do a good job. You're cultivating the relationship and educating these donors. Then you solicit the gift, offer recognition if they want it, and steward the gift. And then cycle back through with them, maybe at different dollar amounts or different types of gifts. So that's seen as kind of the fundraising cycle for major and planned giving. Not everybody goes through all these steps. It's not always real logical sometimes, and it can ebb and flow. There's art and science to this, but that's the general cycle. So when we think about prospects, there are different ways we identify through staff and volunteer leads, prospect identification, proactive, and then reactive self-identification. Here is a form of what I call reactive identification, the magic box. Are you using these magic boxes? Do you put these magic boxes in your newsletter? Even if you're mailing out letters asking for $100, $5, $10, whatever gifts, do you include in the letter, the reply device, the pledge card, these magic boxes? I don't care how many you're mailing to, have these on your pledge cards or your reply envelopes on the inside flap or an insert or whatever. Put these on your website. Put them in your emails. I have included a gift to your organization in my estate plans. I would like more information on how to include a gift in my estate plans. Age 45 to 60, statistically, is the time when people are most likely to write a will bequest to you. As folks get older, 60 and 65 may be the upper end of that, but as people get past 65 into 70, they may do it, but change is hard sometimes, right? So what you want to do is get folks in that 45 to 65, especially age range, because that's when they're most active with thinking and doing and more willing to incorporate new terms in a will. By the time 70, 75 roll around, folks tend to get kind of locked in on what they've got. You may already be there, that's great, but getting somebody else out or you added in may be a little more difficult. So, how many? I do a 45,000 piece mailing, and I have those magic boxes in every one of those. How many boxes do I have checked out of a 45,000 piece mailing, do you think? On a good mailing, if I get 50 to 100, that's a good thing. Think of the odds of that. Now, you're not going to mail 45,000, but the point is, you're going to do a mailing, and if you get one response, that's a good response. That's a great response. See, at the top of the pyramid, it's not about the quantity, it's the quality. At the bottom of the pyramid, donor acquisition and getting, at the base of the pyramid, annual givers going and event attendance, that is about quantity. The more, the better. Bottom of the pyramid. Top of the pyramid, it's quality, not quantity. You're just not going to get the quantity. It's just not going to happen. Are you with me? So do these magic boxes. Don't expect a lot of response, but what do you do if somebody does check one of those boxes? What's the first thing you do? Tell me, anybody. You call them up and do what? Say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And hopefully If you don't know them, you do what? Offer to meet them. Would you meet me for lunch? Would you like a tour? Is there anybody in our organization you'd like to meet? Treat them first class. I mean, treat them like a friend, because that's what they are. A friend of your organization, not you personally necessarily, but of your organization. Get to know them. They have reacted. They've self-identified. If they want more information, what are you going to send them after you say thank you? They've asked for something. You got to give them something. What are you going to give them? The sample bequest language that your lawyer has created for you, right? Along with your personalized information sheet using what I've given you as a sample. Okay? Here is sample language that you can use, and send that to them. Then after they get it, what do? You call them back. Did you get it? Can I answer any questions? Can I get you any more information? There you go. Okay? Some folks might say, you know, I don't have a lawyer. I want to do this, but can you recommend a lawyer? Is it okay to recommend a lawyer? I do this all the time. Do I give them the name of one lawyer? No. I give them 2 or 3 names. So you might get with a lawyer for your organization and get 2 or 3 names of competent, good estate planning lawyers in your area. And if any elderly especially if older folks they have a hard time finding people. It's okay to give referrals, but give them more than one, and they have to choose which one to call and to hire. You're not a conduit for one person. Give them some recommendations. I can't tell you, this is important stuff. Get it on your website, your newsletter, your pledge cards, and be ready. If they check that, I would like more information, have your ducks in a row, have the sample bequest language, have this information, and get it to them. That's all you have to do. You're not being their lawyer, you're not crossing the line, you're just being helpful. Now, that's the reactive. Now let's talk about the proactive. You know, I was asked at the break, how can board members, for example, help with fundraising? Look, some board members can help you actually go out for a gift. That's rare. A lot of board members, you don't want them in the county next to the donor talking to them. They may be a financial genius, but when it comes to dealing with human relationships, that just is not their bag. You know what I'm saying? So, from my experience, I rarely have had many board members who I would say are really kind of skillful at this kind of thing. But they all can help at reviewing lists of names, offering recommendations, inviting you to Rotary, introducing you to people, hosting receptions in their home, saying thank you for your gift. The board president should be doing that. You know, all these other kinds of activities that are very helpful to fundraising. So you got to come up with a list of names. And what you're looking for names of prospective and a proactive major plan gift solicitation are linkage, ability, and interest. The way I like to describe it is you're looking for cues and clues for people interested in major and planned gifts. Now again, you're working on a list maybe of 5 names. I don't know how big you are, but 5 at least, 10, 20. If you're a big organization, try to come up with 100. But once you have your list of names and you put names based on these kinds of criteria we're going to look at, then you qualify and rank them, prioritize them based on who has the most number of check marks by their name based on these criteria. And let's look at the criteria. So cues and clues, charitable interests. Do they have a history of experience with you as a volunteer or staff member? You know, what is their giving history with you? If they're not been giving to you, are they giving to similar charities? Interest in specific programs that you have served by your organization. Maybe interested in a naming opportunity or perpetual endowment. Especially if they're loyal annual givers, you know, at small dollar amounts even. That's a good cue and clue that they might be willing to consider a major planned gift. Folks who are doing estate planning. Sometimes people say things like this to you. You know, I need to write a will, or you know, I'm concerned about things. I'm looking at life insurance now. You know, anything that indicates to you that they're at a moment in life where they're estate planning. We don't know when people do this kind of stuff, but sometimes they mention things, and if they do, put a check mark beside these criteria. Personal assets and income. Now, there's a lot of different criteria here. I'm going to highlight just a couple. There's a lot of research. The Center on Philanthropy at IU, for example, has had a lot of funded research on criteria of those who do major and planned gifts. Business people, business owners, even small business owners, high propensity to want to do major planned giving. They love saving taxes. They love some of these ideas. They like talking about it. So if you have supporters who own a business, even small businesses, these are people to put on your list. Put a check mark next to their name. Many people have an IRA or other things, but especially people who might be working for a large company or higher education that have good retirement plans are especially good to target. Recently received inheritance. Do they own a lot of real estate? We're going to talk about stock and some of this later today, and high income. Tax concerns. Do they complain to you about taxes, income tax, estate tax, gift tax? If anybody mentions a concern about taxes to you, boy, have you got the answer for them. You know, you've got some ideas that can help them save taxes. So this is a big one. You know, you put a big check mark, anybody who mentions this. Personal information. My favorite, single, no kids. Can I say that again? Single, no kids. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. If you know they don't have kids, and especially if they're single or been single a long time, and they come across as being frugal in their management of their assets, put a big check mark next to their name. Planning to move. Transitions in life are big times when people do estate planning. You know, divorces, retirement, selling a business, things like that. That's a time when people estate plan. Of course, you don't know oftentimes when these things happen in their lives, but if you happen to know that, it might be a time to throw these tax savings or planning ideas in front of them. What I do with all these cues and clues is I try to squeeze them on like one sheet of paper or front and back, and then I give them to my board or other volunteers or staff, and along with the list of names, and say, or you can create a matrix with a list of names on one side, these cues and clues across the top, and then just check marks. And then whichever names have the most check marks, boom, that's the top of our list. To proactively go take to lunch, invite them for a tour. First of all, the first thing I do with people, I don't ask for a gift right off the bat. I ask them about them. Tell me about you, and what do you find interesting and compelling about our organization? Have you seen our plan for the future? You share what you have. Do you have any questions about what we're doing? Answer their questions. You're educating, you're cultivating. And they may have a lot of questions. You might have 2 or 3 meetings just to or tours just to kind of get them, comfortable. But if they're asking a lot of questions, that's a great sign, they're engaged. They might end up being a potential board member or a committee member or a volunteer of some sort. But then make the move. Present your case. You may or may not pick an actual dollar amount to ask them for, but at least you know what the dollar amount of your need is, and you can say, this is what we need. If you could help us with all or part of it, that would be a huge help to us. But all that ask comes after this cultivating and relationship building. Now, all the cultivating relationship stuff can happen in one meeting. I mean, you can be ready to ask pretty quick, or because of their concerns or questions or issues, it may take longer. But it's all about relationship. If I had to sum up fundraising in one word, it would be relationship. So what I've been talking about is kind of as cultivating through moves and bringing them closer to you. A few comments about recognition. There are all different ways we can recognize donors, but most importantly, I'll end with the importance of your leadership. Has anybody seen that movie, Jerry Maguire? What was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s mantra? Show me the money, right? And early in the movie, he was not being shown the money, was he? He had a problem, didn't he? He had kind of an attitude problem and a bit of a performance problem. And what did Jerry Maguire tell him to get him to change his approach? And that turned it all around for him to receive the money. What did Jerry tell him? Help me help you. It clicked. He got it, he changed, and he got the money. So, for us, whether we have very aggressive boards of directors, executive leadership, asking you as fundraisers to show them the money, what do you have to say to them? Help me help you, right? So your board, your executive leadership has to help you in a variety of ways. They have to delegate. Hopefully you have a fundraising committee that can talk about, you should report these ideas that we shared today back to the fundraising committee of your board. Get their buy-in to these ideas. They should approve a comprehensive budget that includes money for fundraising, goal setting that's appropriate and helpful. Help you with donor identification, cultivation, proposal, and stewardship. We've talked about that, and 100% of your board should give every year. And also consider a planned gift. I think 100% of boards can include you for at least 5 or 10% in a will, retirement plan. They can do that. This isn't even necessarily sacrificial. I mean, they can do this. You should have policies and procedures that are board approved. This is a little more advanced gift acceptance policies, but you can start simple and be more complex. And we're going to go through non-cash gifts and policies that you'll want to think about. So is the fundraising pyramid the lost symbol for you? You got to focus on your board. Another idea is to have job descriptions for board members. That's a good idea to do. So it takes a village, and you've got to use that power of the pyramid to get things done. So maybe we ought to break, and we can come back.